On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're taking a look through the history books to see what we might be able to gauge regarding future Giant draft trends. Plus, I'm going to tell you which quarterback I think makes the most sense for the Giants. And no, it's not who you think. That and more coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, P-Train, credentialed member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for Giants Country over on the Fan Nation Network, part of SI.com. And a special welcome on in and a happy Friday to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers. If you're new to the podcast, a big warm welcome. Hope you will stick around for the opinions and the football talk and all the cool things we do here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And of course, everybody in between, you're all appreciated and loved by yours truly. And if you do watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, click the little notification bell to get notified of videos and shorts and whatnot that I post. And there's going to be a lot of that coming up in the next several weeks, especially as we get into the draft and the OTAs and all that stuff. And if you wouldn't mind, like the video. It helps us tremendously. So thank you again for spending part of your day with us on today's program. We're going to take a look at the history of the New York Giants pick at number 6. Now, obviously, the Giants could move up, they could move down, but I wanted to hone in on what they've done with pick number 6 and give you a little bit of background, maybe some information that you might not have known in the past that, might shed a little light. So we'll talk about that. Then we're going to take a look at quarterbacks, the first round history of quarterbacks versus round 2 and upward. And I went in and I kind of made a list of where certain quarterbacks were taken, not just the current crop of quarterbacks in the NFL, but historical figures as well versus, were they taken in round 1 or were they taken in round 2 and upward? And the results were kind of surprising. So I'll share that with you. And then we'll wrap things up with, drum roll please, my pick for the Giants' next quarterback. I know a lot of you are going to probably disagree. Some of you might agree. I don't know. Some of you will probably say that I'm crazy. You're welcome to disagree with me. You're welcome to agree with me. I just ask one little thing. Just keep it civil. All right. No need to be calling people names or insulting anybody's intelligence. Just keep it civil. All right. We can agree to disagree and be adults about it. But anyway, that is today's show. Again, welcome on in. Let's get into it. All right. The Giants, as of right now, have the 6th overall pick in the draft. I do not think they trade up. I would be very surprised if they trade up. I know, they have been doing heavy due diligence on the top quarterbacks in this draft class. But as I've said all week long on the show, I think that there's still some needs that the Giants need to address, and they don't have a whole lot of draft options or draft chips, if you will, to get that done. So could they trade down? Absolutely. Could they trade back into the first round, at the bottom of the first round, like I suggested on the earlier in the week? Sure. But let's focus on the 6th overall pick. Now, prior to this year, the Giants have had the 6th overall pick in the draft 4 more times. Okay. Of course, they had Daniel Jones in 2019, and then they had the 6th overall pick 3 additional times. And that's going back to 1946, 1947, 1948. All those picks, by the way, were spent on running backs or a fullback in the 1940s. So Daniel Jones, really the first quarterback selected by the Giants with pick number 6 overall in the draft. Now, here's the interesting thing. I don't know if a lot of you know this or remember this if you do know it, but in that 2019 draft, the Giants actually almost came close to taking pass rusher Josh Allen, who was on the board at the time. It was a tough decision, that there was a lot of discussion at the time, and that ultimately they felt that, the plan was to take a quarterback, get a successor in for Eli Manning. They liked Daniel Jones because, he had the cut lift training, that, he reminded them a lot of Eli Manning. I guess, you could say that they were looking to strike lightning or catch lightning in a bottle again, which, of course, in retrospect was kind of a mistake. Just because a guy has the same kind of, training and upbringing and whatnot as one of your all-time great franchise players doesn't mean that he's going to be as good as that player. But, the Giants liked a lot of Daniel Jones's intangibles. The problem with Daniel Jones, as I have said so many times, is I felt that they rushed him into the starting lineup before he was ready. Now I go back and I look at my notes and I keep, I archive all my notes, my transcripts that I get from the Giants, notes that I made, for Inside Football when Daniel Jones was a rookie. I have all those 2019 issues. And so I have all my OTA notes, my rookie minicamp notes, all that stuff. And back then, I was saying that I had concerns about Daniel Jones being able to read and process quickly. I had concerns about, the team in general, about the offensive line. I had concerns about, did he have enough receiving weapons? And I wrote all this down. So it's all on record. And I have the issues if anybody doesn't believe me. But, a lot of what I wrote down, and I said, Daniel Jones, could very well develop into a good quarterback, but chances are he was probably a year away. Well, we all know what happened. Pat Shurmur started off 0-2 with Eli Manning at the helm and decided, okay, you know what? I want to open up the offense. I want to get Daniel Jones in there because Daniel Jones is mobile. Eli Manning is not. So I want to open up the offense and give us a better chance to win. And Daniel, to his credit, he started off strong. I think he won Rookie of the Week, if I'm not mistaken, in his debut. I think he beat Tampa Bay that game. But then things went south because teams began to, figure him out. And I'm not sure how much Daniel has really grown since then. So, you look at him and you say, okay, he had a great year, or a good year, I should say, in 2022. But then he reverted, under pressure, whatever you want to call it, all these issues that he had in 2023 in limited snaps. And it just, it looked like the same guy that we had been watching, on and off when he wasn't injured, for the last several years. So, when you look at all the things that the Giants did to mess up Daniel Jones, and I do believe that they did a lot to mess him up, rushing him into the lineup before he was ready. And I know back at in the day, Pat Shurmur said, yeah, he's ready. The quarterback's coach, the offensive coordinator were saying, yeah, he's ready. He wasn't. Let's be real. He was not ready. And the Giants did not have a good supporting cast around him. That is a mistake that I think this year, or in this era, that they are looking to avoid if they do indeed take a quarterback, which I believe they will. Get everything set up. Because look, the plan might be to start Daniel Jones when he's healthy. But look, all these excuses that were made in the past for him. Oh, the offensive line was injured. Oh, we didn't have Saquon Barkley. Oh, we didn't have Darren Waller. Well, you know what? He doesn't have Saquon Barkley this year. He may or may not have Darren Waller this year. The offensive line, we still don't know what's going on. So I'm sorry. Excuses have got to stop. If he's going to play, let him play. And he's got to either, it's a make or break year for him, quite simply. And if they do draft another quarterback, which again, I think they will. I don't think it'll necessarily be in the first round, but we'll see if I'm right or wrong on that. That's going to tell us everything we need to know about how they really feel about Daniel Jones. So, the Giants could say what they want, but the old saying, action speaks louder than words. Now, one other thing I want to mention about the 6th overall pick in the draft, as far as the Giants history goes, and I found this kind of wild because I didn't know this. The Giants have never taken a wide receiver at 6 or higher in the draft order. The highest spot they have ever taken a wide receiver was in 1997 when they chose receiver Ike Hilliard with pick number 7 overall. So that's kind of interesting. So, the Giants potentially here can make a little bit of franchise history between, if they do decide to take a receiver, which I think is the way to go, if they stay at 6, or if they decide to take their next franchise quarterback. I mean, given all the work that they've done on the quarterbacks, you would think that that's coming. So, all right, coming up next, I did a list. I made a couple of lists here of quarterbacks taken in the first round of the draft versus quarterbacks taken in the second round and upward of the draft. And I'm going to give you that list to show you that no, you don't necessarily have to take your franchise quarterback in the top 10. So that list is coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So go on and keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay's guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up next week on the Locked On Giants podcast, Coach G. Clemens is going to join me for one episode. I may get another guest for a second episode. I'm working on it. I hope to get this person, so keep your fingers crossed. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't like to say who somebody is until I know for a fact that he or she is going to be on the program, but I am working to get you different perspectives on on the draft and whatnot. We got one more week really to get through. And then the following week, of course, the Giants start their offseason program on April 15th. So there'll be a lot to talk about there. Joe Shane's presser before the draft will be that week as well. We'll have a show on that. So there is a load of things coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast, and I hope you'll tune in. So again, big welcome in to everybody. All right, let's talk about this list. I made the list, okay? First round quarterbacks versus second and above, second round and above. There's this common misconception amongst fan base. I see this a lot in my timeline. The Giants have got to trade up. They've got to trade up. They got to get one of these top quarterbacks. If they don't, what are they doing? Folks, not necessarily. All right. Now, if you've been following along, which I know you guys have because Giant fans are very astute and they're very intelligent, you probably are aware of all the extra work the Giants have been doing on quarterbacks. They've had at least 3 meetings, at least 3 that I know of, with the top quarterbacks. And those meetings would include top 30 visits, private workouts, pro day. Then you throw in, Senior Bowl, if applicable, if the prospects were at the Senior Bowl, and the Combine. So they have done a lot of work on this. And, for all the work that they're doing on quarterbacks, and I know every year it's the same thing. They say, oh, we do due diligence and, we're doing work on all the positions, but they are doing a healthy amount of work on quarterbacks. Too much, I might say, to suggest that they are not planning to take a quarterback. I mean, I would be shocked if they don't take a quarterback, given all the work they're doing. So that being said, does the quarterback have to come in the top 5, the top 3? Not necessarily. Okay. So I made this list of quarterbacks who I think, we could say were successful. They either won a Super Bowl or they went on to be Pro Bowlers or Hall of Famers. Here are some guys that were taken in the first round. You'll recognize these names, and I'll tell you the position they were taken. All right. So first overall picks include Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford, Peyton Manning, Joe Burrow, Steve Young of the 49ers, and then Chiefs. Those were all obviously first overall picks. Then you get to number 10, Patrick Mahomes. He was the 10th overall pick, the Chiefs having traded up. Then you have, let me see, Drew Brees. Well, actually, I'm sorry, not Drew Brees. You have Aaron Rodgers, who was the 24th overall pick. You have Dan Marino, who was the 27th overall pick. So there were good quarterbacks that you could find later in the draft. It didn't have to be like in that top, 5 or 6 or whatever. Let's look at the second round and above. All right. So Drew Brees was a second round pick, 32nd overall. Brett Favre, second round pick, 33rd overall. Jalen Hurts of the Eagles, second round pick, 39th overall. Dan Fouts, formerly of the Chargers, third round pick, 64th overall. Russell Wilson, who won a Super Bowl for the Seahawks, he was the third round pick, 75th overall. Joe Theismann, formerly of the Commanders, the team now known as the Commanders, back in the day known as a different name. He was a fourth round pick. Tom Brady, a sixth round pick, 199 overall. And yeah, Brock Purdy. He was in the Super Bowl last year, didn't win it, but he was in the Super Bowl last year, Mr. Irrelevant. So the point I'm trying to get out here, ladies and gentlemen, is it's not so much about going for the glamour names. I think a lot of people tend to look at the glamorous names and the big names and say, oh, they're the sure shots. They're the ones that are going to work out. And you know what? Most times, yes, that is true, but not always. There's also guys that are taken in the first round or at the top of the first round that don't pan out for whatever reason, that become journeymen. Baker Mayfield went to how many teams? And he was I think a top 10 pick. I remember a guy by the name of Dan McGuire, who I think the Seattle Seahawks took years ago. He didn't work out. Ryan Leaf, who was in that same draft class as Peyton Manning, didn't really work out for the Chargers when they took him. So it's not a slam dunk. And I think too many people tend to get too caught up with, it's got to be a number one pick. It's got to be a first round pick, or otherwise, what are we doing? It's all about the work you put in. And, I think I've told this story before, but if I haven't, or if you haven't heard it, I'll say it again. For my book, The Big 50, which you can see the cover behind me if you're watching on YouTube, I spoke with Ernie Accorsi about Eli Manning. And I asked him, I said, Ernie, what made you convinced that Eli Manning was right for the New York market? Because look, the New York market, as we know, it's a tough market. The fans demand and deserve the best. The media can eat you up alive if you don't have the right demeanor. The spotlight is just so hot that, if you're not wearing aloe or something, you're going to get burned. It is a tough, tough market. And I think, a lot of people say, oh, come on, what are you talking about? It's all about the football skills. No, folks, it's everything. So the Giants and even, the Jets, I would think to a degree, when they're doing due diligence on a quarterback, they're looking at everything, not just the X's and O's, the intelligence, how they can handle themselves. Are they going to fall apart if they get criticized? All that stuff factors into it. So that being said, it's all about finding the guy that checks off as many boxes as possible. The X's and O's, the demeanor, the competitiveness. Does he have thick skin to withstand criticism? Can he bounce back if he makes a mistake? Can he, remain composed if he, gets hollered at by the coach? All of that stuff factors into the equation. And above all, is he a fit for what the offense is designed to do? That's the other thing. A lot of people say, oh, just take the best quarterback and build the offense around him. It doesn't quite work that way. If it did, it would be great, but I don't think it works that way. So that being said, who of the current quarterback draft class makes the most sense for the Giants and why? Well, I'll tell you who right after this. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA is available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker-dealer. All right, everybody, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Hope you are enjoying the podcast. And again, happy Friday to everybody. Thank you for spending part of your day with me here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And again, next week, you're going to have Coach Gene Clemens on the program. And it's interesting, during the commercial break, I got an email in from the guest that I'm looking to book. I'm still not going to say who it is, but I think it's going to happen. Fingers crossed. I've got some cool stuff planned for you guys. So I hope you will check out the Locked On Giants podcast. And I know some of you also asked me, when is the next live stream? Well, I'm hoping to do that as we get a little bit closer to the draft. So I am planning one more live stream with Tana and Bad Dog. We always have a blast there. If you have never been to one of our live streams, you got to come. We have a great, great time. And also, since I premiere these videos, I've been trying to premiere them a little earlier. A lot of the people who show up at the live streams, they form this nice little chat community. It's really cool. You should check it out. I really enjoy it. I am so lucky to have, such a loyal following. And I thank y'all for that. It means a lot to me. All right. The moment you've been waiting for. Who is the quarterback that I like the best for the Giants and why? All right. Now, spoiler alert, I did not use a simulator for this. Okay. I am not basing this on, if I think this guy is going to be at this position or that position in the draft order. This is just purely me using logic and figuring, okay, the Giants probably will not have a crack at any of the top quarterbacks because I think they're all going to go off the board quickly. So where do I think the Giants are going to draft this guy? And who is he? And why is he a fit for what the Giants do? If you have been following me, you know that I have not budged off the fact that I believe the Giants are going to go receiver at 6. Right? If they stay put at 6, it's going to be a receiver. I would be shocked if it is not a receiver. It just makes too much sense not to get that number 1 receiver to help, continue to build this offense and set it up for whoever the quarterback is going to be now and in the future. All right. That means for me that I could see the Giants taking their quarterback in the 2nd round of the draft. All right. So right off the bat, that means no Drake May, probably no JJ McCarthy, no Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams, we know, is probably going to the Bears. So who from that 2nd tier of quarterbacks do I think the Giants are going to go for? And why am I sticking with the 2nd round for a quarterback? Well, because number 1, I think the Giants, again, I think they're going to want that wide receiver. All right. At 6, get that guy. Now, I do think the Giants, if they can't move up into the 1st round, in the bottom of the 1st round, which I have said before has made the most sense, because now you can put that quarterback on the 5-year plan if you want, as opposed to the 4-year plan, as far as the contract goes. But I think if the Giants do stay in that 2nd round range, bottom of the 1st round range, the guy that they're going to go with is Bo Nix of Oregon. All right. I hear the groans already. People are saying, what are you talking about? Bo Nix sucks. Why Bo Nix? All right. I'm going to tell you why Bo Nix. All right. Bo Nix is very intriguing to me. He completed his 2022 season. 71.9% of his passes were completed, 3,593 yards, 29 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. Last season, he improved those numbers. 77 96.4% completion, 4,508 passing yards, 45 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And of course, he was a runner up for the Heisman Trophy. But let's throw all that aside because we all know numbers don't mean anything, right? Let's talk about what Bo Nix brings to the table and why this is a fit for what the Giants are doing. Bo Nix is accurate with his passes and he has the ability to move around. All right. So when he jumped over to Oregon and they moved to that RPO style offense, he was like, it fit him like a hand in glove. Well, what do the Giants run, ladies and gentlemen? They run elements of the RPO. They want to be more vertical, more explosive down the field. And to do that, you're going to need to have an accurate quarterback. You're going to need somebody who can read the defenses quickly post snap. You're going to need someone who is good with the timing and the delivery of his passes. These are all traits that Bo Nix has shown on his college tape, right? He's got a solid foundation. I think he's just a good fit for what the Giants potentially want their offense to look like. And of course, that is a more of a vertical deep threat. So that being said, do I think Bo Nix is ready to start day one if the Giants or any team for that matter were to draft him? No, I don't think so. I don't, with most rookies, especially with quarterbacks, you let them sit for a bit if you can. Let them get acclimated to life in the pros. Because look, when you are a pro level quarterback, everything gets ratcheted up tenfold. And it does take some getting used to. You've got to learn the offense. And I'm not just talking the basics. I'm talking the intricacies of the offense. All right. You've got to work on fine tuning some of your rough spots in your mechanics, your footwork, all that good stuff. So there's really no rush. And especially, for a team like the Giants, there's no rush to get a rookie quarterback out there because this team isn't a quarterback away from making a run to the Super Bowl. They're just not. They're still rebuilding. So you take this year as kind of a transition year. You let Daniel Jones and Drew Lock handle the heavy lifting. You get the young quarterback ready for the future. And then at the end of the year, you make your decision. You say, okay, did Daniel Jones ball out? Okay, yeah, he did. All right, maybe we stick with him. If he says, nah, I don't think we're going to, stick with him. I think we're going to move on. Then you go to the young guy. So if you're the Giants, it gives you options as to what you do with the quarterback moving forward. And again, I've said it earlier in the program, what the Giants do at the quarterback position is going to tell us what they really think about the future with Daniel Jones. And I think, it would be a stunning upset if the Giants decide not to take a quarterback. And I did see one mock draft in which they did not take a quarterback for the Giants. They did not pick a quarterback at all. I don't think that happens. I'd be stunned if that happens. But of course, we'll see what Joe Schoen and the company have up their sleeves. It's going to be fun. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, I want to thank you so much for spending part of your day with me. Don't forget to tune in on Monday. I believe Gene Clemens will be the first show, at least. Yeah, Gene Clemens should be the first show. I'm working to have another guest on, and I will tell you about who that is next week once I finalize all the details. So much is coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm so excited to bring it to you. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.